Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to do a quick episode of Celtic Transfer Talk. We've got a couple of things to catch up on, even though it's been quite a quiet day. There isn't an awful lot that's happened. Yesterday we spoke about that big story, that breaking news surrounding Brighton's formal offer for Matt O'Riley, so we're going to expand a little bit on that today, look at a few other minor stories in the world of Celtic transfers, and talk about who could potentially replace Matt O'Riley should he leave in the next few days. I'm hoping that isn't the case though, and who knows, it might not be. If you haven't already, please make sure to go down below, hit like and subscribe. We don't have long left at all in the transfer window, but I'll be here right up till the very end to talk about what's going on, everything you need to know. So go down below, hit like, hit subscribe. Let's talk about today's update, shall we? So last night we covered this formal offer. That was the quotation that was used by Sky Sports from Brighton in their pursuit for Matt O'Riley. That was news that broke early in the afternoon, and later last night we heard another update saying that Brighton were set to smash the transfer record to try and land him in this window. Things are now getting a bit tedious with that whole story. I understand it's dragged on throughout the entirety of the transfer window. I think most people just want it done and dusted. Most people want it to be done and dusted, but see Matt O'Riley stay at Celtic, and I think that's the side that I would wholeheartedly agree with. I don't want Matt O'Riley to leave the club in this window, but I think we need to be prepared for the worst. I believe that Brighton are the side that will end up landing the signature of Matt O'Riley, and I think it could happen in this window. However, remember this, it's not a certainty. It's not destined to happen by any stretch of the imagination. Celtic are in control of the negotiations, and if they think it's too late at this point in the transfer window to let Matt O'Riley go, they have every right to turn around and say, Brighton, no, not right now. That's still a possibility if Celtic can't find a replacement for him easily. So the next few days will be tense, to say the least, as we wait to hear about these negotiations. As far as we know, Brighton and Celtic are in talks. That was confirmed by Sky Sports. And as Stephen McGowan's update came out last night, they're ready to break that £25 million record. But Celtic don't need to accept, and there's no guarantee that they will. This is how long is left as I currently edit this video in the transfer window. Not a long time, of course, and there is no doubt about it that the panic is going to start setting in for Celtic supporters if Matt O'Riley leaves the club. And do you know what, to be honest, even if Matt O'Riley wasn't to leave the club, the panic does start now, with very little time left, that 10-day period that we've got left in this window. Celtic haven't improved their squad on the back of off the back of last season. It remains the exact same. The signings of Ida and Bernardo, they don't improve the Celtic side. That's how we finished the season on the 25th of May. The panic is setting in for Celtic supporters because it's yet again been another disappointment of a transfer window, one which I think we've been really let down when we knew what had to happen. When we seen how disappointing Celtic were at periods of last season, we knew we needed vast improvement around this side. We knew there was players in the starting 11 who weren't up to the standard required to really do what Brendan Rodgers was brought in to do. And if Matt O'Riley leaves, that panic's going to increase tenfold. So it's a big 10 days for Celtic. There is no denying that. And it's hard. I feel like it's hard for me even to sit here and encourage some calm, some patience. The time for that is past. You know, that was June, that was July. It's now August 20th. So if you want to panic, feel free. I'm not going to stop you. Just to quickly recap on Matt O'Riley for a moment, we haven't had any further updates today. The stories I mentioned a moment ago from Sky Sports and Stephen McGowan, that's as far as it's went. The last update coming late last night from Stephen McGowan. Today we haven't had much else. Brighton's CEO has commented on this transfer window and how they want to continue doing business right up until the deadline, but there was no direct comment about Matt O'Riley himself. This was their comments on Talk Sport. He says, I don't want to talk about other clubs' players, Jim. That would be inappropriate. But you know, we're always looking to try and strengthen our squad where we can. We've done a lot of work this summer to try and give Fabian Hürzeler the best chance of doing well in the Premier League this year. Lots of clubs are investing in their squads and improving their squads, and we know it's going to be another very competitive season. So very quietly, he's basically replied to the questions about Matt O'Reilly and signings, saying that there is business to be done and they want to continue doing business, but he hasn't commented on the player directly. As I said, look, listen, there is no guarantee that this is going to happen, so don't take word from my mouth saying that it's 100% done. We're not at that point yet. However, I did say 2 weeks ago, when Brighton initially were declared as suitors of Matt O'Reilly, that there was interest. I had a bad feeling that the move to Brighton would happen. It just looked as though that all the pieces were falling together for that to be Matt O'Reilly's perfect move. And now we have Fabrizio Romano reporting on it, Stephen McGowan reporting on it, Sky Sports reporting on it. It is very much something that is in the works. We could have to prepare ourselves for the worst. Celtic, they need to prepare themselves for the worst. We cannot go into the rest of this season, this Champions League campaign, without appropriately replacing Matt O'Reilly. I spoke about this in last night's live stream. My worry is about trying to replace O'Reilly this late on is that Celtic will be scared off business because of inflating prices. Look, listen, this is why Celtic need to be careful in their negotiations with Brighton, because if we sell O'Reilly and then we go for another player, clubs will know Celtic are desperate. Clubs will know there's only just over a week left in the transfer window, and who knows, by the time this is all done, it could be a week or less than a week left. They'll know that they can rip the arse out of Celtic. And, you know, Celtic, when it comes to spending money, they don't like doing it. So, you know, we need to be prepared. We need to be acting now. We need to be having conversations with clubs. And we know there is 2 players who have been identified as possible Matt O'Reilly replacements. Let's look at them very, very quickly and how things stand right now. The first player that we know right now is Arne Engels, of course, of Augsburg. We've spoken about him quite a bit on this channel. Valued at roughly 10 million euros at this moment in time. He is one of the brightest stars at the Bundesliga side and captured the attention of quite a few teams, including his national side, Belgium. He was very close to making it to the Belgium national squad for the Euros. He didn't make it. Nonetheless, Celtic are interested, and the reports came out last week that he was a top priority for the club should Matt O'Reilly leave. Now, that's all we have right now. He is a top priority. There doesn't seem to be any news on contact between the 2 clubs, and this is one that if Celtic want to make happen, they're going to have to contact soon. I think he looks the ideal and perfect replacement for Matt O'Reilly, to be quite honest. But right now, we've not acted on this apparent priority target. That's all he is at this moment in time. So I like him. He would be my pick to replace O'Reilly, but they haven't moved yet. The other player is Swiss midfielder Alvin Sanchez. It came out a few days ago via Stephen McGowan that Celtic were considering a move for the Swiss star Sanchez as a potential midfield replacement for outgoing O'Reilly. His article went on to say that Celtic have identified Lausanne Sports' Alvin Sanchez as a candidate to replace Matt O'Reilly. Celtic are obviously in talks with teams for the Danish midfielder. However, Celtic are looking at Swiss Alvin Sanchez as a potential replacement. There is competition for the 4.3 million rated Swiss under-21 international from Nice, Club Brugge, Anderlecht and Burnley. But he's wanting to take the next step in his career in this transfer window. £4.3 million currently rated at. Much different to the 10 million that we're talking about with Arne Engels. You already know which one Celtic would prefer. However, there could be competition in trying to chase Sanchez. These seem like the 2 players who are the top candidates to replace O'Reilly should he leave in this window. But will they actually move for them? That's another question. Celtic need to be in contact with these clubs ASAP. Lausanne Sport over in Switzerland and Augsburg over in the Bundesliga. They need to speak to these clubs very, very quickly because, as I said, time becomes a factor. That drives up prices. Competition could become fierce as well in the case of Alvin Sanchez. If I was to lean to any of these players, it would definitely be Arnie Engels for me. I just prefer the look of him. But listen, there's no point in talking about them too much in depth right now, because all we know is they're on a list at the club somewhere. Being on a list is completely different from the club actually moving for them. There's been a lot of players who've been on lists for Celtic in this window. We've spoke about a hell of a lot of them. There's a difference between looking at a player and then moving for a player. So Celtic need to move soon. Knowing us, we'll replace Matt O'Reilly with a £1 million signing of Luke McCowan, and we'll be expected to move on from there. That wouldn't shock me. But we need to get a move on. Listen, we don't need to sell O'Reilly. In a perfect world, we keep him. January, we then go back and maybe look at the potential sale of him. For now, we need to wait and see. So we'll leave that for now, and we'll let it boil away in the background. Hopefully this time tomorrow when we're on the channel, we can talk about all of this with a bit more certainty. But we need to just wait for news to come out, maybe tonight if we're lucky. Nonetheless, a few more transfer stories to run through very quickly in relation to Celtic. Of course, number one, Gustav Lagerbielke looks as though he's finally getting his move away from the club. It will be on a loan basis to the Eredivisie to move to Heerenveen. Reports suggested that both Heerenveen and Mechelen in Belgium were looking at Lagerbielke, but the Dutch side is working intensively to sign him, and talks have took place between him and Celtic to make that loan move happen. So we've heard that news. Anthony Joseph gave us an update on Daniel Kelly. Daniel Kelly has agreed his move to Millwall, and a £400,000 fee will be agreed between Millwall and Celtic to sign him in this window, so that we don't need to wait till January for the pre-contract to go through. The line of importance here from Anthony Joseph is that Kelly's set to be in London today to undergo his medical and to finalise the paperwork. So Daniel Kelly away, Gustav Lagerbielke also away, and potentially a loan move in the works for Matthew Anderson. Football Scotland picked up on that the Celtic had apparently told him he's allowed to move on loan this season to continue his development, so that would be good for him. So yeah, that's all the little stories right now, and once again, come back to you when we hear more. Right then, that does it for us today. Thank you very much for tuning in. As I said, it's generally a quiet day. Just little stories which don't really have a great impact on the side, to be quite honest. So bear with me as we wait. The next 10 days are going to be busy. But aye. Take care. I'll see y'all next time.